Hello everyone, and welcome to another Gear Talk. We are continuing the Gears of War comic discussion series. We have finally finished Hollow. We're done with Hollow. We finished up the hidden comic of One Day. We now actually move on to our very first standalone comic. You get a few of them in the series. This is the first one we officially get. Yes, One Day is its own story also, but that's like a little bonus comic, like 4 to 6 pages long. It's like a little secret Easter egg, really. This is your first bona fide issue that is a standalone by itself, The Quickening, which is all about Tai. That's how much of a fan favorite Tai was back in the day, and still is. He was so popular that not only in the books does Tai just pop up everywhere, but even in the comics, he got his own comic, The Quickening, that was all about Tai, his mindset, basically his life from Iroma all the way up to when he passed. You get all of that from Tai. It's narrated all by Tai. Tai is like one of those characters in the series that is like the all-time fan favorite. Like, I love Dizzy, but even I cannot deny most people lose their shnikes whenever it comes up to Tai. Everyone's always going nutso for Tai. He was so popular, they put him in Zeta Squad's Shadow of Rom. He's that much of a character everyone loves. So we're going to jump into it, covering the entire series, kind of going through it, giving my views on it. And yeah, the story of Tai in The Quickening. I should preference before we actually get into everything that this is Tai's character we're talking about. And Tai does go out in a very gruesome way by his own hands. So there's going to be some parts of this that I'm not really going to physically show on screen here that I normally do, because of the fact that this is kind of, you know, a sensitive subject of how Tai goes in the story. So viewer discretion advised if you're, you know, not up for very sensitive content of talking about one's being snubbed out by their choosing. This might not be the video for you, but for everyone else, we're going to talk about Tai. And going into it now, we actually have it where the entire story is narrated by him. All the events take place in his view of it all. And we actually start off with just a complete black screen, except for his voiceover with "Life is simple." And then the black screen that said, "There is the void." We hop down one panel and we have him, and this is actually him when we meet him in 2 at the very ending, when he's like in one of those, like, you could say like casket or carriers for humans that the Locusts have for the people that they torture and turn into slaves. And you see him and it says, "There is darkness." And then we hop over to the next page, and it's the full page, which I cannot show because it is the last moments of Tai, and it says, "There is light." Yeah, we get into some pretty dark stuff here. You're going to understand why this page that we have, he talks about the light. But we cut from there and we actually go to the next page where we actually jump into the Pendulum Wars. So we jump back in time right now and we're looking at Iroma. So this is Tai's island and it is 18 years ago. So if you have 14 AE, 4 years backwards during the Pendulum Wars, this is where you get the battle going on his island of Iroma when the UIR are invading and attacking the Southern Islanders. During the entire battle, we actually have it where you get the view of like the land and the helicopters going through. And remember, the lower Southern Islands are all tribal. Now, yes, they do have like some forms of technology, and it's not like they're just, you know, like sticks, bows, and arrows and everything. No, there is some form of technology, but they choose to live a tribal life. That is why Tai is very tribal with how he speaks and talks. And we get this from Bernie later on in the story, and we even get this from characters like Padrick. And Padrick even talks about it where he says, "I'm a northern South Islander. The northern ones, you know, we're like normal people. They're like New Zealanders, kind of." And he says, like, we're normal, you know, we're up with everything. We're understanding of like the current trends of technology. And then the Southern Islanders, those are all tribes. Those are actual tribal people. Hunt, forage, fishing, that is how they do it. So they're attacking the South, and we get it where we have a UIR group, a squad, going right through the forest, just walking on through. And we get from Tai at the top, "Much is learned on the hunt." This is our first shot we get of Tai in the past, at least when it comes to the comics. And we actually have him stalking this squad of UIR. And he's actually, this is one of my favorite shots of the whole comic. He's in the bushes. I used this for my original South Islander video. In the bushes with a knife up right next to him. Just like sitting there like, huh. And his voiceover continues and it says, how to mask one's scent. And as he's doing the voiceover for all of this, for over the entire scenario, it relates to what he's doing in these panels. So how to hide one's scent, how to blend in with one's surroundings, him doing camouflage, how to move quietly. You see that he's taking out a UIR, they're not cogs or gears, a UIR foot soldier, we'll just say, and he actually slices his throat open. That's where I thought it ended until you look at the next panel down, where he says how to move quietly as he's moving quickly to the next one, where you actually see the head falling down the hill. He didn't just slice the throat, he sliced the head completely off the shoulders and just continued forward into battle. The next page you get is probably one of the most badass pages you ever get for like how Tai used to look. So this was his tribal days, and you get him knife in the air, ready to go, and it's just this feral looking Tai, nothing but a loincloth covered in tattoos, just ready to kill. The voiceover we keep getting over this is just how to kill efficiently as he's just standing over this dead UIR soldier. It continues forward throughout the panels. He actually pulls up, it's not a bolt hock, this is like a UIR sidearm that he has, and it says how to adapt. He's taken the gun from the UIR soldier, and now he's shooting off the other members of the squad. There are only 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, and 4. He takes out the last 2 here, and as he says how to adapt, he continues to say, and most of all, the last page standing over the last of the squad he took out, I'm pretty sure I can show this one since there's like a helmet and it's not too grotesque, but there's a helmet on a pike that's obviously got the head in it. He's just got his foot over the other's body, and it says, how to survive. And one thing we'll touch on here, which we're going to see throughout the comic right now, and I've talked about this in Ty's videos, is that you get throughout this, and they even reference it in the games, Tai gets a lot more bulkier as his story goes on. So over on Iroma, when you first meet him, he's very skinny and very lean, very muscular, but very lean and just very agile. As you continue down the story, you get down to like Shadow of Rom, where we see him in games. And in Shadow of Rom, he's a little bit more filled out because he's carrying around armor all the time, and he's a bit more constricted in his movements. He's kind of like looking like the same as Barrick for his build style. Like he's put on more muscle mass. He's still kind of lean, but a bit more muscular. And then you jump over to Gears of War 2. The man is just a bulky beefcake walking around like this, kind of. Giant pauldron on the side. You can tell as the war went on, he decided to trade all of his stats from speed and stealth into pretty much like vitality and endurance. The man just got beefy. Put all of his strength stats just to 10. The man just got really bigger. And he's still a war machine, no doubt. But looking back on this, the man was made to maneuver through a forest. Not so much in the last time we see Tai, but I just wanted to bring that up because I always love looking at the differences of Tai's build as he goes through his story. After he finishes off this squad that's over in the forest, he decides to return to his village. He is just speed blitzing. It looks like he is just like Usain Bolt running through here, jumping around everywhere like, I don't know, Mr. Miyagi if he was 20 years younger in Karate Kid, and just booking it to his village, which is hidden out in the forest because, again, a very tribal society that they live in. As he's making it there, he sees fire in the distance, and his eyes kind of like focus in because he realizes that this is the area his village is in. So he makes it all the way there. I'm not going to be showing this part because I don't feel like showing a child on fire. He makes it there and sees his entire village is scorched. Everyone in his village has been massacred and slaughtered. We do learn, however, later on in Hivebusters, some of his village, or at least like maybe this was a branch from the main village, did live and carry on Ty's memory in Hivebusters. Although they all get taken by the swarm, so I mean at the end of the day, his village is still kind of gone. But at the time we thought this was the end of everything, and he's the sole survivor from his main village. After that happens, he goes on a just kill all, doesn't matter who it is. If it is a soldier, they are dying. Just rampage. So he carries around a bow and arrow with him. And for anyone who knows their lore well, the South Islanders, whether it's the Northern or Southern Islanders, are very well known for being crack shots with snipers or bows. So you have to imagine this is probably the most efficient weapon probably Tai is trained in. And he goes out to the woods while it's raining and just starts hunting. So you see him just running around with the bow, always having it pulled back and ready. I'm assuming during all of this, he's just hunting soldiers left and right. Doesn't matter who. Anyone on his island that is not a part of a tribe, he is just killing. So he's just going through and shooting down. All the while, in his head, he's just like, what do you get with a man that has lost everything, has nothing? What do you have for a man who has nothing at all? You have your enemy's worst enemy. While he's hunting, we actually see him come across a soldier that is making his way by. He is wearing basically like your standard like jungle style armor that the Cog have. So it's kind of a little bit lighter. He ain't got like the sleeve, but he still has like the shoulders, but he has no sleeves for this one. So he's traveling lighter. And we see a bow being pulled back. And as I said with Cog, It is Marcus Phoenix. He's standing there. Again, this is in the middle of a rainstorm. He is being hunted by a master of camouflage Tai, which we've already seen, and having a bow pulled on him, which is silenced. And without even looking in Tai's direction, he says, wouldn't do that if I were you. So if anyone ever asks me when I give like Marcus his feats, this is like one of his biggest ones when it comes to like his awareness for battle. He is in the middle of a rainstorm against a very trained and powerful, probably the most powerful of the South Islander warriors, with a bow aimed on him. And by the look of how close it is, this is only like a few feet. This isn't like a 50-foot shot. This is like, at a most, maybe like 20 feet away. And he's got it just locked on him by a master of camouflage. And as Tai's looking at him, Tai's actually holding back. He has not shot him yet. And we have Marcus actually turn around and look at him. And he says, look, I'm not going to BS you. I'm not going to lie to you. The people that came through and slaughtered your people, those are the UIR. I'm not with the UIR. I'm with the COG. We're fighting the UIR. And as he continues on, he says, listen, you know, if you want to get revenge and you want to fight, the COG could use someone like you. We're going after them. We are no saints. We're not the good guys in this war. We're not. At which this is brought up a lot without the story, with that the fact that the COG and UIR, there are no good guys in the war. There aren't. There's no good guys. During the Pendulum Wars, it was two sides. This was war. Neither side, aside from like the political hierarchy, saw themselves as like, we're the good guys in this. No. Each side understood, no, we're fighting this over basically emulsion. Okay? We're killing others that have gone on for a war for almost 80 years. This is not like a good scenario either side is on. So like Marcus here understands, no, my side, you know, we're not the good guys, we're not the bad guys, I'm a soldier. That's just how it is. So he continues on and he says, if you want to join me and you want to come with and you want to fight with the COG against the UIR, you're more than welcome to. If not, it's all your call, but I'm going to be heading back. And during all of this, Tai actually sits there, puts the bow down, and actually starts to think about it a little bit. Because it's not, he can understand a warrior when he sees one. You know, he's like, this guy's obviously not BSing. Like, he could spot me out of nothing. And he thinks about it, and we get his inner monologue, and he says, when a man has nothing left, and he says, he is ready for change. From there, we cut forward 2 years. It says 3 years, but it's 2 years. To the Battle of Aspho Fields, where we see Tai in COG armor with a retro lancer just unloaded from the side, and he is battling two UIR soldiers. While he's battling them, he actually takes out the first one, and he severely wounds the second one. He makes his way up to the bodies, and he sees the one in front of him. He says, basically, he's bleeding out and dying, and the second soldier is like, no, please, I don't want to die. I want to see my family again. Please. As Tai's looking over this dying UIR soldier, he actually kneels down, brings him up, and actually cradles him in his arms, kind of, while the soldier finishes what he's saying. He says, like, oh God, Mommy, I'm so sorry, because obviously he's seeing the last moments of his life flash before his eyes, and he's holding them there. And as he's holding him there, there's still a war going on, and you see in the background, two other UIR soldiers are now closing in on Tai. So he's sitting there with this soldier, takes the helmet off and everything, and as this character dies in front of us, the inner monologue is still going on with Tai, where he says, my people believe the body was sacred, which we get a lot more of this when it comes to Gears of War 2. He says, when only the soul dwelled within. When a soul has passed, as he's finishing that thought, he looks down at the body that has just passed in front of him and says, they already know, be at peace. He's basically holding him in his dying moments to see the soldier off into death. He looks over his shoulder. We get ... from the soldier. He's dead now. He looks over to the other two coming. Proceeds to pick up the dead UIR soldier right up, uses him as a meat shield bullet sponge, and puts out his gun, runs forward, taking all of the bullets in front of him, unloading on the two other UIR soldiers, which he kills, jumps over where they're in cover, throws the dead body over, and I'm going to read it verbatim, what I've got right here. The body was but a husk. Your enemy forgives you. Understand, like, this is just his body at this point. There's no soldier in here. It's just a piece of meat. Come on, let's go, buddy. And just carries him off into war. And that's his time at Aspho Fields. From Aspho Fields, we jump forward, where now we are 1 month after the light mass bombing over at Timgad. So this is after the events of Gears of War 1. At this point, we actually have it where Tai has been placed back on Delta Squad. So, originally Asphodel Fields, he was a part of the 26th RTI, which he was with Marcus, and then during the events of Gears of War 1, he was taken off of Delta, because in the books he was also with Delta for a while, but he's not with Delta in 1. He's put back on Delta in between the events of 1 and 2, and during that time, he's actually fighting along Marcus, he is with Jace, and he is with Dizzy, which I covered this in Dizzy's video and Jace's video. Timeline-wise, the only reason you could see Dizzy here is maybe they had to put him on a mission to get him used to being like on-the-ground cog before they put him over in the motor pool. That's my assumption I made, but yes, Dizzy is here in the middle of events 1 and 2 with Marcus, Tai, and Jace. So, comic-wise, he's there. He only shows up in two panels, but he's there. And during this time, you actually have it where Jace is looking very downtrodden and looking very off. And you actually have it where Tai asks him, like, you look ill. And where he looks up, or he's looking down, but he looks up after the conversation, and he says, yeah, well, I'm not exactly thrilled with death. As we learned from Hollow, he has a bit of a religious issue going on in his mind and psyche of what's right and wrong, and one thing being that death does plague him now and then of his enemies and his allies. And during that conversation, you actually have Tai looking over his shoulder saying, you shouldn't be. Life is sacred. As he says that, you have Jace saying, it's hard to remember that sometimes, and Tai's like, yep, that's true. It is hard to remember sometimes how sacred life can be, but still, we must remember. As he's looking at the dead body of the Locust and just lighting him up with a flamethrower. It's funny because every time there's like a sincere moment with Tai, he still unleashes that tribal savagery you see a lot. So like in the comics, he'll be caressing a dead soldier as he takes him off into death. And then the moment after that, meat shield and throw him after you're done. And then you come to this where he's trying to console Jace, like, Jace, life is sacred. Always remember that. Now, excuse me, these guys, I gotta light them with a flamethrower. Give me one moment here. It's very weird because he just goes back and forth with that one where he's like, and we get that, with his mannerisms, with how he talks too, just like, the locust blood shines in the moonlight. It's very like tribal wisdom followed by tribal savagery, and that's just Tai's character. And everyone's just always taken off by that. And it's funny because that's his character trope, where it's like, the wise man is also the savage man, which I very much enjoy. So we then cut forward 5 months to where we have the events of Gears of War 2, where they're making their way to Landdown. And on their way there, we actually do see his squad, when he's inside of the big rig that he's in, actually explode and get destroyed. And we do see that Tai is the only survivor, just like in the games. For the next couple of pages, we do get to reenact the scenes we had from Gears of War 2. For instance, when we do have it where he comes out of the wreckage and he joins back up with Delta, he comes up to them, they're talking about how badass Tai is, and fate throws us again together, eh, Marcus? Which, if you do know the story of these two with 26th RTI, and even the story earlier how they first meet, Tai is one of Marcus's closest friends in the war. You have it where Dom and Carlos were like brothers to him, but if you had to name like soldiers in the war that were close to him like brothers, like squad mates, you really would have Tai being one of those soldiers. Later on, you learn because of the events between 2 and 3, Dizzy also becomes one of those characters. You have other characters like Jace. Jace really does. Like, he starts off as seeing Marcus as this hero figure, but it slowly evolves to them seeing each other on equal terms, which is big for Jace's character, because he goes from this newbie, like, fanboy of Marcus's to, okay, I now stand on the same pillar as Marcus. It doesn't go to his head, but he's like, I'm now, like, equal to Marcus Phoenix. Not for, like, the pedigree or the skills, but when it comes to seeing us as soldiers, I am a soldier just like Marcus. Tai and Marcus had seen each other like this for a very long time, since the Pendulum Wars. They have always seen each other as being, like, on that same pillar. I've equated this a lot, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I've equated this a lot to how, when it came to the COG military, it was always seen that the 26th RTI were the soldiers among soldiers. Like, you had the best of the best in the 26th RTI. Marcus, you had the Carlos Santiago was in there, but the Santiagos were known for that. Then you also had Tai, who was there. Helena Stroud was a part of that. These were like soldiers that everybody knew throughout the entire military. And when everything was said down in the Pendulum Wars, and you come to this portion of the war in the Locust War, there were really only 2 major on-the-field soldiers that were very well known to be equal for, like, holding up the morale and everything of the COG. That was Marcus Phoenix, and that was Tai Kaliso. These 2 were the 2 that were like, nothing, if these 2 don't crumble, we have a shot at winning this. So as we're going to come to later, when one of those pillars crumbles, it really is seen as just like, oh, we just lost one of our monsters. Like, we're barely being held up right now. Like, when that happens, trust me, like in the comics, in the books, everything, it is felt when the moment we're going to be coming to happens. During these 2 pages, we also go from them meeting up again to the battle at the end of Land Down when Scourge now makes his appearance. During this, we recreate everything of where Dizzy says, I'm going to hold him off, and he's sitting there ready to go against Scourge. I love Dizzy, but he wasn't going to win that fight. And you actually have Dom and Marcus loading up into their grind lift to go down. While that's happening, Scourge is coming forward to go towards Dizzy, where Tai, just like in the games, comes charging right in, and he goes ahead, and he clashes with Scourge, where we have Tai come back up in his voiceover, in his head, of every warrior has an equal, an opposing force equal in strength. And for the first time ever, we actually get a breakdown of the battle that happened after Marcus and Dom left the surface. So we see what happens when Tai is going against Scourge with Dizzy giving him support. And honestly, this is probably one of the best fights you'll see in the entire comics. Like, if you're looking for a breakdown fight, this is probably one of the better ones you are going to get. This is why this comic ranks pretty high amongst all of them. You have Scourge versus Tai, and this is not like a gunfight or anything. Scourge is not equipped with guns. He's equipped with basically his chainsaw staff. Tai goes in as a warrior. I ain't gonna shoot him. I'll fight him with my chainsaw and my fists. And they go in mano-a-mano in a straight-up weapon and fist fight. And I can't break down how amazing this is without going through and reading this page by page, panel by panel. It is so good. So, honestly, the entire battle starts off like we have Tai giving in kicks, throwing him over the shoulder, hitting him, and it's a pretty even clash. And Tai at one point even has the upper hand on Scourge. At one point, Tai is leading the battle in a fight. But we do get the voiceover halfway through, and it says, every warrior has a superior. As he says that, you start to see the battle start to turn once again. You have it now where, apparently he doesn't have the chainsaw running in this one. He hooks Tai by the arm with the chainsaw staff and throws him, and he's kind of holding his own and getting hits in as he's going. And Tai is just taking the brunt of this and kind of just holding him off. He's getting knocked down, but still kind of getting up, but he's still like on his knees a lot. And while the fight's going, he comes back in with an opposing force he cannot overcome. At this point, and it hurts me to say this, Tai knows he's not going to win. I hate to say it. As much as I love Dizzy, Dizzy's my boy, my favorite of them all, Dizzy was not going to be able to assist and do anything in this fight. And Tai wouldn't have wanted it that way. Tai wanted to take him on one-on-one. So as the battle's going, Tai actually is getting pushed back. He's holding on to the staff. Scourge is holding on, and Tai's being pushed back. He looks over to Dizzy, who's watching, and he says, go now, go. Get out of here. As he's doing that, Dizzy's looking over and very hesitant not to go. But you do have it where he says once again, Tai does, go. So Dizzy looks forward, and as he's leaving, he looks back one more time and says, good luck, brother. So Tai loses. There's no way around it. Tai loses. But he is not killed. Tai is not killed by Scourge. Scourge personally takes him back to be broken down and basically turned into a slave. Now, as you've seen with Maria, and I've heard about the others, basically processing and breaking down is not a pleasant thing to occur. It is not fun. It is not a good thing. It is a very horrid thing that goes through with humans. Basically, it can be a number of things with Maria in general. Beaten, broken, pretty much just starved. Lobotomy was done to her, as we could see. And now it's time for Tai's turn to go through. So as we see him, I'm pretty certain I can show this. It's pretty graphic, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. They hook him up with both of his arms in the air, take all the hooks and dig them into his back, like they're literally piercing his flesh and holding him up. And as they're doing that, taking a spiked metal whip and flogging him until there's nothing. As we see in 2 with how his back looks, he has taken a beating. His inner monologue comes back in. My grandfather once told me that a soul will leave the body when it's time. Not always at death, he said, when the body becomes a prison. So we'll get to it at the very end here. But essentially how Tai is seeing it is that his life, basically his soul of his body, there's not really much left physically of what Tai is. He's holding strong. Tai is a very durable SOB, but even his body is understanding, like, we can't hold on. We're going to get broken. And then we cut to the next few pages, and we see the effects of processing on Tai. We cut back to the beginning of the entire comic, where the basically like sarcophagus coffin that holds the soldiers and the civilians opens up, and his inner monologue continues where it left off originally, where being a prison, it is time for the soul to escape. We have it where Delta finds Tai, the scene we see from the games where he actually makes it out after he's released. You see all the damage he's incurred, and you have where Marcus is like, Tai. And you have it where he's like, Marcus, we got more coming. Come on, come on. And then, Tai, let's go. Come on. And they throw him a Gnasher. He looks at the Gnasher in his hands as he thinks, and once the soul is gone, the body will follow soon after. We cut to the final page of the comic, where just like where we left off in the games when we last see Tai, he has taken the Gnasher, he is holding it in a very peculiar sense, aiming upwards, and you have it where Marcus sees him and says, Tai, no! And we actually have the reverse of how he says it in the beginning of the comic, where he says, there is light, there is the void, there is darkness. And that is the end of the Quickening. Oh boy! Okay, so the Quickening. It's one of the sadder stories in Gears. And Gears is a very sad story with like everyone's different story routes. It gets sad for a lot of characters. For instance, there's a lot of endings to people's stories that are very sad, like Maria's is sad, Dom's is sad. Who else do we have? Dizzy's, his ain't sad. He makes it to the end. Cole makes it to the end. Baird makes it to the end. Marcus, he just has a lot of sad stuff happen throughout his story. But you have a lot of characters that see their end, and it's kind of like in a more depressing sense, a pessimistic sense, where you have Tai, as I've mentioned earlier, one of these like pillars of strength in the cog, actually being broken and choosing himself to not be around anymore. So it's very sad, because Tai was the character that was like always there and fought and was there for other people, even if he was a bit barbaric at times. But that was Tai. Only to see even he chose, lack of a better term, obviously, the easier way out. Seeing as how his soul had left, there was nothing left. As we saw in the UIR battle he had over in the Pendulum Wars at Asfield Fields, you know, when the soul is gone, the body's just a husk. It's just a body. It's meat. There's nothing else there. And that's how Tai even sees himself. My soul is gone. There's nothing here. Like, I've already passed on. Let's just get the show over with. That's basically how it ends. So that's the Quickening. Honestly, even though it gets very sad at times, it's very good. This is probably one of the better ones. I honestly would say possibly the best standalone that they have. If not the best standalone, definitely one of the better stories in general. If we take the 26 original issues, I have to say this is in the top 3. It has to be. Like, I think like the chapter you have in Hollow where Barrett goes out, that's like an S tier chapter. That's an up there chapter. I would say there's one of them from Baron you get to that's definitely up there. I would have to say, you know, when I get all of them together, I want to do a tier list to see where they all fall. Until I'm able to put everything else into perspective and compare it all, I think I honestly have to put that up there with the rest. I think this is one of the best of them all. I think this is right up there with the other two. So I'm going to put it up there. Honestly, one of my favorites. I can reread this one all the time because this is like very choice content you get when it comes to Tai. You have his history in this. You get his mentality. You get basically the story he gets from different wars in general. You get the UIR on his island when he's fighting as a tribesman. The UIR Pendulum Wars when he's fighting as a cog soldier. You get when he's fighting the Locust as a cog soldier. You get over at Landon when he's fighting Scourge. Like, you get all of that. You get the battle with him in Scourge. You get that. In the game, you don't get that. In the comics, you get the battle, and you see how it turns out and how everyone ended. Like, I did not know that Dizzy lived for the longest time until I read the books and saw the comic, and I was like, oh my god, thank goodness he's alive. Thank goodness, because I had not played 3 at that point. Like, okay, as long as Dizzy's alive, I'm happy. So, that's going to do it for the Quickening. One of my favorites. I love it. So, I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank everyone for making things possible. Thank the patrons for making things possible. And when we come back, we continue the Gears of War story with the comics. See you in the next one. Later.